So before I begin the second episode of D&D Talks today, because I'd like to start off strong and do 2 episodes, because that would at least be kind of fun, I'm going to do a roll. I got, like I said from last episode, got the table, and I got the D10. Let's see how this goes. Okay. Okay, because we're talking about Spelljammer. Give me a sec. I'll be back. Now, sit down, think about space for a little bit. I'm going to give you the TLDR on Spelljammer in the Forgotten Realms, specifically because of 5th edition, because that is current edition, current setting, all that. That's what I rolled on the table. So, yeah, this will be a TLDR on, or just like current, what you should think of when it comes to Spelljammer in 5th edition. Now you might be asking, what is Spelljammer? Spelljammer is essentially the space campaigns of D&D. You ever wondered what's in space above any of these fantasy worlds? Well, this was answered. I can't remember exactly which edition. It might have been 3rd, but no, 2nd. Yeah, 2nd, because I can remember because it was reviewed in Dragon, which is the D&D magazine, at one point around 2nd edition. So Spelljammer is everything that takes place in space. Now, every D&D world and every solar system around it is contained within a giant glass, or not glass, but like this crystalline sphere. And in between all these spheres is this giant flaming kind of astral sea that I think it's called like the Flamogen. I'm sorry if I messed up that name. But anyway, that's not the point of what we're talking about. Because the point of what we're talking about is that Spelljammer essentially refers to just the act of traveling between all these different planets within your solar system, or traveling from one sphere to another sphere through the essentially they have marked exits in the sphere. And essentially the whole point of Spelljammer is that you get a ship, which is called the Spelljammer, and pilot it to different planets, asteroids, etc., exploring the galaxy, and solar systems, doing fun adventures like that. The Forgotten Realms, while seeming like a fantasy, just typical fantasy world, actually has plenty of this. Now, if you want a quick idea of what a Spelljammer kind of looks like, first, it kind of looks like the airships on Eberron. But if you want a better example, they have a kind of good example in the Githyanki. So yeah, Githyanki, Githzerai ships. These ones are called the Astral Skiffs and Astral Brigs, with one massive ship called the Planar Raider. Another quick look. But every race actually has different ships regarding the race. Even elves and drow have their own ships. Ships can be anywhere from sci-fi looking with tons of metal and stuff involved to just typical ships. Like, they look like ocean-faring ships with essentially the whole thing that drives them is something called a helm. Not like the typical ship part. It's like a throne or device that the commander of the ship accesses and then sacrifices spell slots to pilot. So that's a lowdown on what a Spelljammer is. There's too many of them to go over. Maybe I'll show some pictures to the side of me as I'm talking of a couple Spelljammers. But so now we have to get into the Forgotten Realms and what Spelljammer means in the Forgotten Realms. So it's not different than any other one and than any other universe. Alien technology and advanced technology actually exists in Forgotten Realms. You might not know it, but it's actually like within eyesight almost at all times, because the Forgotten Realms, like within its sphere, it's called the realm space, has a ton of it littered everywhere, even across your regular world. If you've played Storm King's Thunder, I don't have the book with me, so I can't show you. There's a squid ship, which is one of the Spelljammers actually in it, but it has its helm and stuff removed, so you can't actually fly with it. The Mind Flayers and Beholders are actually astral races. They are not from this world. The Mind Flayers themselves are actually a huge galactic empire, and it mentions them a little bit in like the lore of the Githyanki, Githzerai, and a few other races, especially the ones they've enslaved before. No, they're not just Underdark creatures. No, they're not just something that takes over towns. They are something that takes over worlds. The ones that are in the Forgotten Realms are remnants, or colonies. Their ships are probably hidden or parked, like, just randomly across the world. The Nautiloids, which are what their ships are called. So where we can start with this, I'll show a couple creatures, maybe a picture or two, but the easiest way to find any of this stuff in the Forgotten Realms, and this is where I start getting into the current 5th edition, is that nothing's really changed. Like, they haven't said that anything's changed so far with everything, because in the current canon, it shouldn't have, at least. So, you're wondering, how do I see any of this? Where is the nearest source of it? Well, each race actually has a lot of ships and stuff just around, which it's kind of hard to find since they don't really have any info on that in 5th edition, because they're kind of focusing on the standard, typical fantasy stuff for all that. But the races do have ships. And if you search hard enough, demons and devils and stuff also have things. Like, I can show you a few races in a minute. But to start with, look at the moon. The moon on like in realm space around the world that is Forgotten Realms. Why am I forgetting the name? No, Toril is Skyrim. Either way, above Faerun, because that's where you'll be spending most of your time. That's the main continent. Above Faerun, you will see a moon and 13 asteroids called Saloon, Saloon, and the Tears of Saloon, which is the moon, and a bunch of little pieces of it that broke off that are each like different little asteroids, or either pieces that broke off or they're just their own asteroids. Sorry, I haven't read this in a while. I'm generally knowledgeable about it, just not the specifics of how the Tears of Saloon formed. And if you were actually use a telescope and look at the Tears of Saloon, you notice some of them look kind of strange. One of them is a literal floating island in space, covered in grass, plants, and a stream, like a magical stream that flows off of it. Kind of Wizard 101-like, if you think about it. And it has a big castle. The only thing that inhabits it are oozes and slimes. That's just one example. There's another one that looks like a normal asteroid, but inside of it has a deep network of tunnels and a base that belongs to a renegade sentient spelljammer called the Batship, which is a massive mechanical bat dragon creature ship. There's a large article curse about it. I'll put an image up here. But that's not even where that ends. There's a ton of different ones. There's even entire cities on the Tears of Saloon. Like, the biggest one is like this massive trade center that has that actually has a friendly beholder who runs a restaurant named Large Luigi. Breaks entire beholder logic because that's a friendly beholder. And I'm going to break beholder logic a little bit more as I explain the rest of this. And there is Saloon, which looks like a normal moon if you look at it, but that's because there's massive illusion magic covering the entire front of the moon. So as it turns, it looks like just a normal moon. But secretly, there's actually a massive city, like cities covering Saloon. Ships going in all the time. Just illusion magic is preventing you from actually seeing it. It's really powerful illusion magic. And so that's probably your best bet. Like, I don't know how, like, if you could just use a long-range teleportation spell stacked with a bunch of other wizards and, like, conjuration for some air or something. I don't know, just figure out a way, I guess. So you could access ships easily without having to find Mind Flayers or Githyanki or Githzerai. Well, Githzerai don't really use Spelljammers a lot. Well, they have them, I think, in Spelljammer, but they don't strictly use them. Either way, yeah, alternate planes are helpful for this if you wanted to access the technologies. So before I go into the specifics of some creatures, I have some books here, like Mordenkind's Tome of Foes, and I guess the Monster Manual will be helpful, because I can point out some of the more space-related ones I know. I can go more in-depth into the creatures later on. I'm just going to go over basic courses when I get to that, essentially, but let's explain the planets in the Forgotten Realms right now. In realm space, we have... I can't remember the exact number. There's a couple I'm forgetting. There's a large asteroid which has a settlement on it that is kind of like a Pluto, essentially, in terms of how you would treat it. It's like big enough that people have like a civilization on it, but it's like small enough to not really be a planet. There's like something like that in Forgotten Realms as well. I can't remember its name, but there's plenty of planets. I really should have read up a bit more, like, on the names, so I wasn't forgetting them as I'm doing this. But hey, trial by fire. So there's the main world that you're always on. Pretty simple. There's Saloon, Tears of Saloon. Either the next planet, or I think it's the next. You know what? I'm gonna pull up the map real quick. 1 sec. So, I guess I'm actually... so yes, the world is Toril, after checking. So I guess I was right the first time, and I was just doubting myself. But, so we'll go out from the sun. How about? Because there's actually more planets than I thought, because I was forgetting a couple. But, so I'm just... But, don't worry, I'm just trying to make a helpful guide. So it's not like I'm claiming to be the best. I'm just trying to give a quick rundown. So... Okay, yeah, I remember most of these. So first one is Anadia. Kind of small green planet covered in lots of rocks. There's like if I remember correct, yeah, there's a halfling settlement. They grow some unique herbs that are good for healing and all that. Umber hulks are the infestation on the planet. Pretty simple. Then there's Koliar, which is essentially a floating island planet. There's a bunch of like floating islands and like islands of water, which are just globes and stuff. If you ever played Worlds Adrift before it closed down, it was like that. But yeah, it's just basically a bunch of floating islands. The mage Elminster actually has a like kind of vacation home mansion there. There are avian life forms like Arakocra. There's lizard folk who fly on like devices and whatnot. There's friendly red dragons, because little known fact, dragons aren't actually bound by alignment. There are plenty of good and bad within each one. Sure, they generally lean towards one or the other, but for instance, the entire species of red dragons on this planet is primarily good, with, of course, the one or two exceptions. And then there's Abir. It's pretty much the twin planet of Toril, and you can't see it because it's within a pocket dimension, even though it's within the same... It exists near Toril's orbit, without going too much into that planet. Then we get to Carpi. Carpri. I completely forgot about this one. It is a primarily water oceanic world with some ice mountains and a couple different land-based... There are a couple good land-covered areas, but it's primarily ice and water. But it's a planet covered in dangerous predators and insects, and it had aquatic elves, apparently. I don't know if that means past tense, like they're gone now, but I'm not reading the article. I just looked real quick because I didn't want to read the full thing while I'm here recording, but yeah, so yeah, just a hostile, oceanic, and frost-covered world. Okay. Then we have Chandos, which is pretty much a sentient life created world. It's pretty much just an oceanic world, but you ever seen those islands in real life where people just stacked up rocks to the point where it becomes an island? That's pretty much all of what this is. It's a place where spelljammers have crashed many times and people have built up little islands and civilizations and stuff purely because it's like that. But yeah. Then we have Glyph. It's pretty much... the best explanation I really have for it is Mind Flayer colony. Complete Mind Flayer infested planet. Like, it's the most hostile place you could hope for. Like, well, almost. Okay, and the other one I was talking about that was just a big asteroid is Garden, which is a bunch of earthly masses connected together by a massive plant. So yeah, it's pretty much just a bunch of asteroids that have been connected by a plant to form kind of a civilization / planet. And then finally, there are tons of small astral bodies, and then there are a bunch of stars that have been infested by entities that are also like within realm space. But we're going to ignore those. It's a bit complex with those. But let's talk about the elephant in the room in terms of planets in the system. Probably one of the most interesting is H-Katha, or Hakatha, if you pronounce. I think I call it H-Katha because of the apostrophe. But H-Katha is a flat water world. It is 100% like, it's like almost 2D world. If it's like the flat earther's dream, where the water kind of just loops back into the same ocean. And it's completely flat with a singular mountain with an island surrounding it coming out of the ocean. It is the homeworld of the Beholders. It's where Beholder queens live, like the Beholder hive mothers, queens. I forgot. All the Beholder kin as well, including ones you've never seen, such as like there's these ocean dwelling ones that look like lobsters in a way. The flame beholders, the ice beholders. Like, there's beholders that wield tons of magic power. There's like hive lords and stuff like that. But yeah, so this is where it breaks beholder kind like lore in 5th edition, because they are a huge mass of beholders all living as a colony. They might still be like super suspicious of each other all the time, but they're definitely just living together on this planet, like as a civilization. Apparently people can actually dock there. Like there are 6 ports that allow spelljammers controlled by other beholders to land. So it's like an active civilization of all of them, which is shocking. But anyway, that's the lowdown on like just the realm space. And the crystal sphere, by the way, is pretty much unbreakable. And there are tons of entities that protect it anyway, so don't even try breaking out. There are like gates that allow through, like teleportation gates. But yeah, so that's the TLDR on just what there is in realm space in 5th edition. I'll go into some creatures real quick, just so you're not like left hanging with just information on a couple planets and stuff like that. Like, I'll even have gear. Quick note, I can't bring the DMG here for a moment because somebody else is borrowing it, but if you want to use alien technology, it is in the back of the DMG, or Dungeon Master's Guide. It includes alien rifles, pistols, antimatter rifles, stuff like that. It does require high checks to even know how to run them and use them effectively in combat. They're like their own entire thing, along with stuff like plasma grenades and all that stuff, which are also back there. Modern weaponry. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. Basically, anything that's considered an aberration might come from outer space. The aboliths, which are an aberration, don't, I think. There might be other ones, but they would definitely be from other spheres, not the ones on Toril, because Torils are just special, let's say. So I'm going to flip. I'll be cutting from here on out just randomly to get to different races, starting now. Okay, let's start big. Astral Dreadnoughts. They're not only in the astral plane, they can also be in space, because technically it's a gray area, but they can be like in the depths of the void, all that stuff. Burblang. I'm gonna not do all the mundane ones. I'm just showing a couple. Like this is interesting because these live on the bodies of dead gods in space and all that. But yeah, not every aberration is an alien, and I'm not going to show off all of them. I mean, there are some ones that it's kind of funny that they're from space, but like, just because I'm not showing an aberration doesn't mean I think that they don't come from space. Most of them do. Anyway, on to the next one. Just a quick note, as probably whoever is playing this wants to use modern weaponry and everything. These are Dukes of the Nine Hells, the Orthon. They're interesting because they have grenades strapped to themselves. It doesn't have statistics for them here, but it does have, ignore the horrible mass that is that creature. And it doesn't list the grenades, but it does have like general damage of activating them all at once, which you can just assume, talk with your DM about it. But if you can defeat them without causing them to explode, then just take them. They also have a magical, somewhat advanced crossbow and a cool sword that you can use as a space buccaneer if you wanted to. Ooh, this is a good one to bring up. So on to this one, we have the Gif, which don't confuse with GIF, like the elves. But GIF are a spacefaring race that essentially, their Spelljammers are British galleons, with the helms and all that stuff. By the way, a quick note, helms can come in many shapes and sizes. Just not going to go into that, just quick note. GIF have probably the most advanced general technology that's available at any one time. They carry tons of gunpowder on their ships. They have blunderbusses and all the good stuff. But yeah, they just muskets, pistols, blunderbusses, frag grenades, stuff like that. And yeah, they're essentially the British captains of the universe. On to the next one. Okay, now from Volo's guide, we have the Neo Guy, which have been talked about many times online, but just as a quick note, for anybody who was thinking like, oh, I should avoid Mind Flayers. Yes, avoid Mind Flayers, but not as much as the Neo Guy. Neo Guy are pretty much as bad, if not worse, than Mind Flayers, and they're also everywhere. They just make themselves less, and they're everywhere, but they don't make themselves as known in Toril than anywhere else, really. But they are out there, and they will kill you. Be prepared for that. Just as a quick look at the Mind Flayer, just so anybody who, for some reason, didn't know what they were, could see them. We're in the Monster Manual now. So yeah, I know I'm skipping a lot of aberrations, and I'm going to apologize for that right now, because I probably shouldn't, but at least you're getting kind of an idea, and by the time you've looked through all these, you can probably guess what is and what isn't from space. Next up, the Mimic, because that is definitely from space. Quick showing of Mimic. Everybody should know what these are. You have to look out for them constantly in dungeons. A Mimic is an aberrational creature from space that usually in a Spelljammer campaign will pretend to be pieces of ships, as like a massive colony of them will shapeshift into pieces of ships. And once they have shapeshifted into said pieces of ships, they will wait for scavengers and looters to approach the ship and then swarm them, breaking their Spelljammer and spreading everything about, and then take their shape again to create these massive trap graveyards. That's what I'd like to say about Mimics. Gold dragons are not from space, but well, I guess there are some exceptions, but I'm just showing a picture of Gold Dragon, which is essentially a stock, as like a stock image, essentially. While I make a quick mention to Astral Dragons. Astral Dragons are massive dragons, absolutely massive. We're talking larger than gargantuan at any given time. They don't eat typical things. They primarily feed on knowledge, and that's why they like having conversations with creatures that they encounter through space. They're basically just giant space dragons. And every time they are fed a piece of knowledge or just like information, it goes into their scales and they glint like gems. Don't give them a lie or misinformation, or like a dark part enters their gems and they're racked by something equivalent to indigestion. And they immediately will terminate whoever is being bad to them, essentially. They have a suction attack in space, which is kind of weird, but they have a suction attack. And in their mouth, instead of where a throat should go, they have a sphere of annihilation. That is just part of their biology. So good luck with that. So they can pretty much kill anything that comes across their path. They don't need a breath weapon. They have Ultra Kill Death Suck. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, that's an Astral Dragon. Anyway, I was looking through the books, and I didn't want to really put anything else from there. Like, there's some good things, but I think I'm just going to end it here. The video's been going for a while. Hopefully you just found some information that was helpful. And yeah, get some of these books if you want to learn more, I guess. Like, just look at creatures. It won't really teach you anything about Spelljammer. There's plenty of resources online for that. Look into 3rd edition and 2nd edition if you want some good info for that. Especially on like mind flayers and beholders and all that stuff. There's a bunch of interesting stuff out there, especially when you get into like familiars and all that. But anyway, that's where I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Sorry, it was kind of a mundane episode, but hey, heck, maybe I might record another. Nah, I should probably wait till tomorrow. I don't even know if these. Well, I'm not expecting these to do well, but yeah. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.